I don't rely on it. You're good.
I just wait for you.
Use my name again.
We're good.
We're good? Okay.
Oh, we're gonna be over 25 feet.
Nothing is good. Okay. Hey, welcome. We're about to start.
Good to be here, good to be here.
Yeah. Okay. Then I'll call the pre-meeting of the Orem City Planning Commission to order at whatever it is, 3:32 on July 5th. Let's go. I think we're gonna start with a presentation from Kathy Lewis from the Economic Development on economic development in Orem.
It's good to be with Kathy Lewis, the Economic Development Manager, and thank you, Madeline, for asking me to give an economic development update. So I just wanted to frame a little bit that the focus of economic development is to promote the economic well-being and quality of life for communities by creating, retaining, and expanding jobs that facilitate growth, enhance wealth, and provide a stable tax base. And that's from the International Economic Development Council, kind of the gold standard for economic development. Now I'm going to give you a roadmap just to give you a guideline of what we're going to talk about today. I always like that to know where we're going. We're going to talk about the recently completed projects because everybody loves those. Those are cool to see. And then some economic development data. I'll try to run through it fast, but that'll give you a framework for what's truly happening in our area. And I'll talk about our Orem Business Alliance, projects under construction, University Place projects, and finally upgrade projects. So some of the recently completed projects I've kept Orem Tech Center here because it's interesting to note that the industrial, warehouse, and manufacturing sector that makes up the largest share of commercial construction activity in Utah. So it's a pretty important sector. This beautiful Orem Tech Center, it's across 69 acres. It has 6 warehouse buildings with over 700,000 square feet of warehouse space. And what some of our top retail or our top businesses located in the Orem Tech Center are Lecanto and American Crafts. And you, if you're not familiar with Lecanto, it'd be interesting for you, I think, to look them up. They chose to locate to Orem. It's their North American presence. They chose Orem because it's so business friendly, they said. Then just to the north is called Commercial Center, and it's located on 15 acres, and it has 3 industrial flex warehouses totaling over 200,000 square feet. And notable businesses are Just Ingredients and Redline Racing. Now, Just Ingredients is a important up and coming business. They chose to locate in this commercial space where they have some retail space, and then they package their products. They are in the health and wellness industry, and it's interesting to note that they started with educating consumers on health and wellness topics over blog and podcasts that they did, and it's grown so fast. It made the Utah business fastest growing 50 of 2023, and Just Ingredients was recently awarded the official health and wellness partner for the Utah Jazz. So they have over 170 employees at this location. So they're an important business.
Are they headquartered at this site? Is this their only location?
No, this isn't their headquarters, but they package and they have a small retail spot here at the Clark Commercial Center. There's Smarty. They have been open for some time. They're an address validation software company, and they did a full complete remodel of the Stevens Henniger College that's off of I-15. It's one of our great I-15 frontage buildings, and the facade is almost unrecognizable from what it was with Stevens Henniger College. Then we have the Maverick on 85 West and 800 North. There's a small business that located to a space in the RW Commercial Center, and that's located just off of Geneva Road and Business Park Drive. And an interesting thing to note is SFC Energy. They are a provider of hydrogen and direct methanol fuel cells, and they are a partner with LiveView Technology. And LiveView Technology does the standalone surveillance units. And even though they have located relocated, LiveView Technology has, to the Spanish Fork Springville area. It's important to remember that we're a regional economy, and so it's great that LiveView Technology has stayed and has partnered with SFC Energy. There's nothing but cakes. Everybody loves their treats here in Utah, and they're located just off of State Street. They're near Sprouts. And Orem Foot Solutions is one of our newest businesses. They're located just south of University Place. So we have quite a variety of new businesses that have come into Orem. Now let's dive into the data. So this data is sourced from the City of Orem Development Services Department, the Business Licensing Department, the Department of Workforce Services, and Colliers International, their research division. And so this data will just kind of give you a snapshot of our economic plan, just frame everything for us. So the commercial addition or building permits, this again comes from the City of Orem Development Services data. It's interesting to note the decline in both, in the red, the commercial addition or remodel, and the slight decline, even though it's fairly stable, of the commercial industrial. And this could be due in part to the rising interest rates and kind of the fluctuating economic conditions. We see then that maybe less building permits have been taken out. So the high for the commercial or remodel permits was in 2015 at about 262, and the low was in 2023 at 133. And again, the commercial industrial, it's fairly stable, but the high was in 2018 and the low was in 2021 at 7 permits. And if you note, 2024 is year to date, so that's not the full year. We don't have the full data in yet, considering it's just July. Then residential building permits, this is single family. And so the high was in 2015 at 108 permits and the low in 2022 at 47. And okay, here we go. And then condos or townhomes, the permit high was in 2018 at 239, quite a spike right there. And the low in 2023 was 0. And year to date on the condos and townhomes, there have been 8 permits issued. And the mixed use permits, you can see in 2014, that's where the high was at 843. And then the low again in 2023 with 0 permits issued. And year to date, no permits have been issued in that area either. Now, the commercial business license data comes from our own City of Orem business license program. And so the 10-year lowest number of businesses permitted was in 2013 at 2,505. And then in 2023, it was a high, let's see, I think that it should be 3,483. Okay. And then moving on to the number of employees reported. This is self-reporting by businesses, so it isn't necessarily the most accurate. So they're not required, businesses aren't required to give their exact number of employees. So this is, again, an approximate. So the highest number of employees reported by businesses was in 2023 at 35,483. And then the lowest number reported was in 2019 at just over 28,000. So now we're moving on to Utah Department of Workforce data. And the reason why this is 2022 data is it is updated sometime at the end of July and early August for the previous year. So we don't have the 2023 data yet. And if you, I need you to keep in mind that all the numbers are accurate. So you can see that looking at the number of firms, although Orem has the highest number of firms of the 4 comparable cities, Provo, Orem, Lehigh, and American Fork. Provo has the largest number of average employment, as you see to the right. the chart to the right. And on the next page, we'll see that Lehigh has the highest average monthly wage. And possibly this is because the high-tech industry in Lehigh, it drives up that average wage. While the hospital and the medical industry, that drives up the total number of employment or employees in Provo. So then here is this.
Can I ask a question?
Mhm.
So that Provo, does that exclude BYU employees?
I don't know, do you know about that one? I don't know if they're included in BYU.
So
I believe that it does.
It does exclude.
No, I believe it should include.
Should include
I don't think it'd be as high without BYU.
you.
I would assume that it's including it because look how
Confirms.
fairly close the employment numbers are for Provo and Orem, I would think.
Got county, EDRMC and BYU are the three big employers in Provo.
yeah, that's what I would guess.
Yes.
And Provo has 2 of the poorest census tracts in the county, in Provo.
So again, here's the monthly wage showing that Lehigh has quite a substantial higher monthly wage, most likely again, due to the high-tech industry. It's probably going to stay that way with Texas Instruments increasing in size in Lehigh. Now we're moving on to, this is sourced from Colliers International, their research and forecast division. And just to orient you a little bit, Colliers has divided up Utah County into these 4 quadrants, the west, the north, central, and south. We're going to look at the comparison between the north and the central. And the north includes Lehigh, American Fork, Alpine, Cedar Hills, Pleasant Grove, and Linden. And central Utah quadrant includes Orem and Provo.
So 2,000 north is the Linden.
So just to orient you a little bit, this is going to help you understand when we talk about the different office class in the next few slides. So office buildings are divided into class by location, building age and condition, amenities, and aesthetics. And so, for example, a Class A office space, it's going to be newly renovated or new. It's going to be top quality. It's going to have all the amenities that you could find. It's going to be beautiful, well landscaped, pristine. And then kind of on down to Class C, it's going to be 20 years or older and maybe need some renovations. It's going to be kind of, it might not even have any amenities 20 years ago. They probably didn't provide nearly the amenities that businesses do today. So here's just a visual example. Class A is something that you'd find at University Place, like the 4-story office that's above the parking garage, or you can probably recognize Class B and C throughout Orem. So now we're looking at Class A vacancy rates. So you can see, if you look 2020 and on to 23 and 24, the rise in vacancy rates, that's possibly from the bullwhip effect, from COVID, and from the changes in employment that happened in the office sector. So, and it could also be due in part to the new and remodeled Class A buildings that entered the market, especially when you're looking at the North Utah County and the sharp rise there. That could be a result of that. Here's the Class B vacancy rates. Central Utah County, it's had consistently high vacancy rates since 2020. And then, you know, the North Utah County rose a lot more sharply after 2022. It's kind of interesting to notice that contrast difference there. And Class C office rates, isn't this interesting? Look at how low the vacancy rates. Some thoughts on this are that some of the businesses that occupied Class A and Class B space, possibly they, for economic reasons after the pandemic, had to move down. And also those new and starting businesses, they're going to move into that Class C office space. So if you look in North Utah County, it was at about 0%, not much Class C office space available for the past 2 years. Now the retail vacancy rates. Central Utah County, their vacancy rate reached a high in 2020 and their low was in 2022. And it's interesting to note when the retail vacancy rates are high in those areas, usually the lease rates tend to be lower and kind of vice versa. So when there's more vacancies on the market, it kind of drives that price down.
Could that be the Provo Mall?
Who knows, probably a lot,
Is it?
you know, in that mix there. And also kind of a thought on this too is that in the North Utah County, there's a lot of building going on. And in Central Utah County, it's pretty built out. Here in Orem, it's pretty built out. So that might have an effect on those vacancy rates also. So this is property tax revenue growth per year, and these compound every year. So if you look at 2021, the new property tax increase was quite high. And the reason why we don't have for 2023 yet is, again, the state doesn't release that until later in July or into August. We just don't have that data. So these compound year over year. So for example, in 2022, the city received a total of over 697,000 more in property tax, and that continues to add on every year. Now, here's a look at the general fund sales tax. You can see in 2021, the sharp rise. It rose by 17, almost 18%. And then if you look at fiscal year 22 to 23, it barely rose, not even 1%. And so you can see consumer spending changes and habits due to economic issues. You can see how that's fluctuated. So now we're going to move on to other topics. The Orem Business Alliance. Why do we have the Orem Business Alliance? Well, it was created in 2022 to help our existing businesses to flourish and thrive. So we provide opportunities for businesses to network. We provide monthly education at no cost to our businesses. And we connect them to valuable resources that we have at our Business Resource Center in Orem that we're partnered with UVU on. We serviced an average of 65 businesses with ribbon cutting since we began, and an average of 40 businesses come to our monthly meetings. And every year in December, we give business awards in 3 different categories just to motivate and help businesses to do what they do better. These are some of our great businesses in Orem that have come in the last few years. Lazy Boy, Big Blue Swim School here on Center Street, those are some. And then just some more, we have a great variety of food and food establishments and restaurants. So these are just some notable ones. Now this is talking about projects that are under construction, the 877 North here on State Street, Dutch Brothers Coffee and Quick Quack Car Wash. And as far as I know, we don't know the third occupant of that property yet. And then here on Center Street, just next to Big Blue Swim School, is American Freight Furniture, and appliances. And we have the Maverick on 1247 South Geneva Road. And now let's move on to University Place, some of the completed projects. Cheesecake Factory opened yesterday after 10 years of citizen requests. They opened their doors for business. They have over 8,500 square feet of space. And this is interesting to know. This is the last Cheesecake Factory that will be built in Utah. They said they'd like to keep it limited, and so they have one location at City Creek. That was their first location. The second location is in Fashion Place Mall in Murray. So I think we're really privileged to have Cheesecake Factory here in our city. I know citizens went crazy when it was announced, and they're excited to have Cheesecake Factory. I believe it will drive more business to University Place and to the other high-end restaurants that we have, Tucano's, Outback Steakhouse, Texas Roadhouse, Carrabba's in the area. They'll probably receive and the overflow, and people don't want to have the wait that's required sometimes. Here is University Place Tower, 100,000 square feet. It's 4 stories, Class A office. It's ready for tenant increase.
Say, how full is it?
As far as I know, they haven't leased it to tenants yet. It's a tight office market and, you know, this is indicative of the office market nationwide. This isn't just, a problem, a challenge that Orem has. It's regional, it's statewide, and it's nationwide. I think after the pandemic, it was unknown what businesses were going to do and what employees were going to do, whether they were going to remain, you know, working from home or kind of a hybrid type of a program, or if they were going to come back. So it is a challenge nationwide. There's the Courtyard by Marriott. It has 140 rooms, has elevated amenities like the bistro that includes Starbucks, breakfast and dinner options, 24/7 fitness center, has an indoor pool and whirlpool spa, and it has 1,400 square feet of dividable meeting space. So it's a great place for businesses to come for conferences.
That's on 8th West, right?
Yes, yes.
ECC.
Or it's DC,
Yes.
sorry.
A University Place, the best University Place project. So now these are some approved projects that you're going to recognize. The Neaters project, 1960 North, with those nice, beautiful office space and the retail pad on State Street.
Although we haven't seen it site plan for this yet.
This is a concept, yes. So just a concept. And then there's the Citadel Storage on 1385 West and 1600 North. And Jason, can you remind what is the process, or what part of the process are they?
So the zoning was approved by the council, now they're site plan.
So do you have any questions?
Where's that Smarty building on I-15?
It is just south of Utah Valley University.
Like pickleball courts.
Yes, it's near Pickleball USA.
Sand Hill Road.
It's
Larry H. Miller.
near
Next to
the
the temple.
Brent
Brent
Brown.
Brown. Larry H. Miller.
Brent Brown dealership.
Used to be Steve Fingers. College. Like hang time?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just south of that.
We'll get
So
some.
that's what you frequently.
Well, I still think of it as that, what, it's like Lowe's. Home base. Home base when they first opened.
They had Ernst.
Yeah. Ernst was in
Ernst
Carroll
was a long
Square.
time ago, Dave.
Ernst was Carroll Square.
Not dated.
Oh,
I'll date myself.
Just
I bought my first kitchen table at the Ernst like on Carroll Square.
Do you remember the Albersons? Obviously.
Just in conclusion, Orem continues to be a great place to work, live, and play. And interesting to note, in 2024, it remained in the top five for the 4th year in a row in the Milken Institute of Best Performing Large Cities. And that's notable. And although you can see the growth that's happening to the west in Saratoga Springs and Eagle Mountain, and to the north in Pleasant Grove and Lehigh, and that is drawing away consumer spending, Orem still continues to be the retail hub of Utah.
Yeah, because I mean, population growth, I mean, they're kind of fulfilling their needs out there, pulling a little here, but they need a Costco out there, they need. While ours is still busy.
I actually did have a couple of questions.
Sure.
So from your presentation, it seems like there's a real need for retail. That we need to have retail space, like that seems to be where the lowest vacancy is in Orem. Is that a correct statement, or do we have a lot of vacant retail along State Street?
I would say not necessarily, that the retail is filled rather well, and from my perception, on the retail front, when a business becomes vacant, sometimes it backfills in a day or two, especially around University Place Mall. It
Big
fairly
problem.
quickly.
But I'm saying in Orem, like what, as we're looking at things.
If we look at that, because it's central, right?
Right, oh yeah,
But probably I think it's probably thinking that bringing us down, because I think we're pretty full.
well, that's what I'm saying, that we need, like, as we're looking at what's coming before us and what spaces, talking about
Absolutely.
retail,
If
we
no
need more
then
retail
we'll be filled.
over office space.
Because that retail's our
That's true.
economic engine.
That's what I'm trying to, it
Yes,
looks like
that's-
office space
Is
isn't
there room to
necessarily.
grow the retail? space rather than the office.
than the
space.
office space or, you know.
From a
We
revitalization.
provide more amenities for the people in the
Well, and
central.
we, like, we're looking at, you know, we had a property before us at our last meeting in southwest Orem, you know, and what kind of businesses go in there, or how much retail space we need to plan for them, such things.
That's a big area.
That's a good point, and really, you know, the most heavily trafficked intersections is our State Street and University Parkway. And so, I think they're, you know, all the visitors love to stop and shop along that whole road.
The other question I had was just what kind, I mean, along the same lines, like what types of businesses are trying to come in, what type of retail is trying to come into Orem? Again, as we look, like our next item on our agenda is to look at C2 versus C3. Like as we're looking through what kind of businesses, what are you seeing in trends of people who are interested in Orem?
I think with Cheesecake Factory coming in, possibly it will fuel the higher tier businesses to come in. I noted after COVID, some of the larger box stores were backfilled with what we might call like class C retail, like Painted Tree and some of the other businesses. And so I wonder as, you know, with Cheesecake Factory coming, if it might attract some of the larger national businesses wanting to come in down the corridor on University Parkway to replace as those leases come up.
And I've wondered the same thing, like, okay, it's great that we've been the commercial center of Utah County, but obviously, like you said, you have to have these satellites as the county grows, so how do we make us the high-end retail? What do we need to be doing, what do we need to be thinking about in terms of what attracts some of this higher end? Because yes, I agree, once we have a Cheesecake Factory, let's hope we get our Container Store and a couple of other things soon, so we don't have to keep driving to Salt Lake, I'd rather spend it here at Orem.
I would vote for it.
So
They're
perhaps it's
awesome.
keeping an open mind for redevelopment along the parkway. Because while 25 years ago, those large box retail stores really served their purpose. Today, some of the box stores have really lowered their footprint size. And perhaps redevelopment could occur along University Parkway and attract some of those more updated concepts for the retail with smaller footprint and some of the higher.
So some of the statistics of things that retailers look at is number of rooftops within a mile, 3 mile, 5 mile radius. Per capita income, so they want people that have a lot of money to spend. And also they look for synergy with other similar users or high-end users. So at the mall, the fact that they landed a Sephora and a Lululemon and now Cheesecake, those are 3 high-end tenants that will attract other tenants. So getting those are a big deal to what Kathy said.
And
Right, is there an update on Shopko? Anybody?
Yeah, so Tractor Supply is going into the
Okay.
east portion of the building. They're only taking about maybe a fourth of it, I'd say, of the square footage. It's like 28,000 square feet. That building's like over 90,000, maybe 100,000. So it's
But Gary would be happy if Container Store went the other day.
yeah, there is a similar to Anytime type development listed on the real estate flyer for the western portion of the building. Before that, it was Crunch Fitness, so
yes,
those leases don't always happen.
exactly. And talking to Kelsey Bowler, she's a real estate agent working on listing. She said she hasn't nailed that down yet. It's a concern. So she hasn't gone after the third tenant until the second tenant is under lease. So it just hasn't quite happened yet.
I think it would be very interesting and useful for each of these businesses to know more or less how many people they employ. And is it local ownership or is it somebody else?
That would be interesting.
Because those two factors.
I think an REI would be perfect shop place.
Art?
Nice climbing wall.
That's a fantastic idea.
Used to have an REI, if you remember.
I remember that.
You should use the mezzanine for that one.
Hopefully they are spending this conference. Right.
And just to add to what Ryan said about national businesses attracting other national businesses in the mall entrance across from Sephora, there's a major women's jewelry store that's coming in soon. just across there. And so it's at the Fashion Place Mall. And so these larger tenants are attracting the larger tenants, which is good.
So Kathy, what are your concerns moving forward? Then what actually do you do in your efforts to attract businesses? Specifically, what do you do?
That's great.
Day-to-day?
Great question. So I work specifically with real estate agents. I'm in touch with probably 6 to 7 real estate agents that specialize in different areas. And just today, I met with a couple. They're a married couple that are real estate agents, and they work in all the different sectors. And they said across the board, it has been slow since January, even in the flex warehouse leasing sector. And so they said sometimes in times like this, it's difficult to attract new business because of the interest rates, and the economy is a little bit tenuous right now, that the tenants are holding back, and instead of expanding, they're just remaining steady with what they have. And so, for example, when a business is looking to come into Orem, I can help site selectors, I can help provide tours, I can help facilitate making connections with an existing property here in Orem to see if it's a good fit. And sometimes too, there are businesses that want to expand in Orem, they want a specific space. And so I worked hard with an existing electrical supply company to find space in Orem. And we couldn't do it, we lost them to a neighboring city, but again, the regional economy comes into play there. So I try to visit businesses, I try to stay on top of, especially our building industry, to find out if they're looking to move. Some of the building industry wants to move to southern locations, farther south locations like Spanish Fork, Springville area. As the growth goes south, they want to be where the growth is. But whenever we can, we try to encourage them to stay here, to incentivize them, to encourage them to stay, to remain in Orem, because that's a great sales tax revenue base. Is the building.
How do you incentivize them? What do you do then?
You know,
Okay.
that's difficult. I don't know that I shouldn't have said that, because I don't know that we have incentives that we can give to keep them in if they're not in a redevelopment area, because most of our redevelopment areas have expired now. We don't have the opportunity to do incentives other than just encourage and show them that we appreciate and value them as a business in Orem.
Well, Kathy, let me help out a little bit. We do try to do what we can, like Mighty, that Mighty right down on North, but we partnered with them with the crossing in the road so that their employees can get across in a safer manner. So we try to work in the ways that we have assets that we can use. You know, just you need some piping done or a sewer line replaced, you know, do what we can.
Well, and I think our PR has just stepped up, right? All of the social media.
And we have opportunities to help businesses brand themselves in our social
Great on
media.
that.
We have a great social media following on our Instagram and Facebook, and just even through email. And we have a great business resource center, and our businesses are becoming more aware that there are free services that can help them do what they do better. Everything from finance to HR to tax preparation, just at no cost to them. So we consider that a great resource for our businesses.
How is that funded, that resource center? Who manages that?
That's a great question. So the city is in partnership with Utah Valley University, and Utah Valley University pays the staff for ongoing work there. And it's also staffed through the SBDC, or the Small Business Development Center. They have space in there. And the Small Business Development Center is paid through the state, and they offer classes at no cost to our businesses. They have business advisors. They have 3 business advisors that give business counseling for new startups and existing business.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Okay, any questions, sorry?
Yeah, that's kind of stewing in my head here. Do we have any efforts going on to attract technology companies, IT, cybersecurity? You know, right now, Lehigh gets a big piece of the pie because of the proximity to Salt Lake Airport. We have here a very highly educated technical base. BYU's got a great program. You've used Building 1. it would seem to me with Provo Airport expanding in operations, that we could be courting, smaller.
That's a good question. What most of the high-tech companies want is I-15 frontage, large office space. Even lights at the top, and unfortunately, the city doesn't have any of that available. We have a Class A office at University Place, we have Kenyon Park Tech Center, but right now, it's a challenge because businesses want to be on the I-15 frontage. We do have options for kind of growing technology. For example, at our Business Resource Center, there's incubator space, and that brings in some of the finest students, and they start businesses. They can incubate at very inexpensive costs. If you know, along the Valley Grove interchange in Pleasant Grove, there's Pura or Purasense, it used to be known as. That was an incubator space business at our Business Resource Center. And also, LiveView Technology started in 2014 at the former CEDO space, which was our economic development incubator space in 2004. So Orem is known for incubating some great tech companies, and Word Perfect was started in the basement here in the city of Orem. And so we are known for incubating. We just don't have the space to attract existing high-tech businesses. The high-rise I-15 frontage office space, that's the challenge we're facing.
They also like to straddle the employee base, both counties. That's why they build Draper and Leon.
Because they can tap into Utah State University, Utah Valley University, BYU.
Well, in commutes, your employee base, people in Salt Lake City are not gonna want to commute to Provo or Orem. Just like people in Orem or Provo do not want to commute all the way up to Salt Lake City unless, so it's just easier if you're in Draper or Lehigh, then they will commute halfway, but they don't want to commute all the way.
But see, if they come here, then they can go to the mall at lunch, they can.
I've never had a problem. I've commuted up to Cottonwood Heights. You give me the right job and I'll drive. A lot of people, they don't even want to commute to work. They want to work from home, so.
And that kind of underscores my point. I think some of these companies are rethinking what they do with office space. We see that in the Palo Alto area where big companies are moving their operations to places like Nashville, et cetera, Austin, Texas. It just seems to me like there's opportunities there if we think about them and find ways to do. And maybe, I think we can find reasons why things can't happen. Maybe we need to be thinking about how we can make it happen, because I hear a lot of discussion about retail. That's great, but that doesn't work so well when inflation's high and people are worried about, food on the table, paying rent. But if you get people fully employed.
Yeah, I agree.
It's very
I
balanced.
think there's a shift going on to more like the 90s where you had your tech centers were around communities and the people just kind of leave their areas.
And we're hoping with Smarty locating here in Orem, they're a high-tech company with address recognition software. If you use a computer and it comes with a drop-down menu and you can click what you're looking for, it kind of does that recognition. That's sort of the industry they're in, their high-tech. So we're hoping that maybe they'll attract some like businesses, and it would be good to attract more high-tech. I think that's really a great option even for that Class A office space at University Place.
Cybersecurity is going to be really hot in the next few years, and that, we could have a great piece of line.
Yeah, and just to add to Kathy, I used to do Kathy's job, and we were partners with EDC Utah, who at the time is the company responsible for all the recruitment into the state. And the state was giving out incentives left and right, and I actually went with EDC Utah to San Jose and San Francisco on a recruiting trip. We met with probably 8 different companies trying to recruit them to Utah, not just in Orem, but anywhere in general. But as a city rep, they let me go with them to try it. And we didn't land any on that trip, but EDC Utah landed many on those recruiting trips. Unfortunately, they'd come back and they'd pick Lehigh over Orem, or they'd pick Provo, or we would compete and we would do submittals with other cities to land them. And we never landed a single company through that process. It's pretty cutthroat. But cybersecurity is definitely an niche that would be good here because we have security metrics on 16th North, and they're one of the leading security businesses in the country, cybersecurity.
It's just thought, I mean, I think anything that we can do to attract small, medium-sized businesses in the technology sector, that's never gonna go away.
Yeah, and I think it's a good, I mean, one of the things is as a community, you wanna have a niche that you're recruiting. Like whether it's life science or pharmaceuticals or cybersecurity, Orem could be the cybersecurity cluster that we go after. So that's some good feedback for Kathy.
It's just a thought.
Thank
That's,
you.
that happened to me in my working life, so it's of interest to me.
I think it's a
Thank
great
you.
idea.
I do wanna get to our next item, we do need to talk about the next item, but thank you, I appreciate
Thanks,
you taking the time, Kathy. And then Jason, are you doing the next one?
So. Part of this, C1, C2, and C3 uses.
I'm gonna ask a question while you're passing it around. How often are these updated? Is it mostly that things are added and things have, or do things come on and off this list? Or is it like once something's added to C2, it's in C2?
Typically it's in C2 unless there's some use specifically that the council or staff determine that it doesn't make a lot of sense. So over the years, we have removed a few, let's say the green recycling out in the M2 zone, it's a different from C2.
Yeah.
Because of the smells and different things, we eliminated that, slaughterhouses and years, obviously those types of things.
So when this is changed, does it have to have city council approval?
It does. So about 10 years ago, we went through and removed all the conditional, majority of conditional use permits because the state basically said it's conditional use is a permitted use of conditions. So we either made it not permitted or permitted. So the majority of them will not see very many on C, which is conditional. Most of them are either not permitted or permitted. Typically what happens now is with a business, let's say that's in the C3 that wants to move to a C3. A couple of years ago, we did the tattooing, if you remember that, 1 needle or 2 needle or 3 needle tattoo. That was added to the C3 zone. With a specific caveat for that. So typically we have applicants that want to come into a specific zone, request to be added, they pay an application fee, it goes through the process. On occasion, the city will do a review of somebody for council or county staff, we're going to fill, you have a lot of uses that make sense in a specific zone, will make request to do that. But it's been several years, it's typically just an applicant will make a request. So on this sheet, you'll see those that are outlined in red. Those are all permitted in C2, but not permitted in C3. And then the black are typically, could be in C1 or C3 or all of them, depending on how it is. So the red kind of stands out in the fact that those are the C2 users. Some are retail, some are commercial daycares, things like that. Maybe unique to the general commercial. I mean, that's the main, as far as the uses are concerned, this is kind of about this.
I know this is gonna sound like a silly question, but why would you not allow Christmas tree sales at a C3?
We just haven't had it.
Time of Christmas, okay,
Typically, they've all located in C2 zones.
yeah, cause I wanna be on the main street.
On State Street.
And come on, 8th is well trodden too.
So if somebody come in like for Doritos or whatever and said, you know, I really want to go to the snooze parking lot, then they would have to go through that process to come and the council could have to assume yes or no.
Yeah.
That's typically the process.
I'm just using that as an example for something that,
So I mean, C3 does have a limited number of uses, but it doesn't mean in the future somebody won't come and request to add some use.
So again, the ones in red are not permitted in C3, but in C2.
On the last page, there's a kind of a wall, just in case. And then, of course, the setbacks, in the part that we handed out.
Yeah.
That's.
no, it's not allowed.
You give me one?
C3.
Did you know I was?
Send.
Okay, just.
Oh,
Thank you.
Three.
Oh.
Yeah. So the main difference in C3 is 100-foot setback is in C2 35 feet, if you're 100 feet back into a 40, on the C3, it's 150 feet.
No, Samuel went down to.
So that's basically.
That's really the biggest
They might have, well,
That's the biggest.
So that's kind of the main thing, setback in residential, well, some of the uses are different, so those are the conditions. Any specific questions?
just looking for a second.
Well, no worries. This will be, I mean, you can have, obviously take this with you, it'd be a good
Yeah.
cheat sheet to have some question about uses. That's all I've got, unless there's questions. Was anybody, I need to go you a card too. All right, now, yeah.
Does anyone else need the cards? Jason has one. Yeah, if you don't, it's really.
I stole somebody.
I was asking questions in council meeting now.
What's
What's that?
Extremely still, you're more quick than cheat. They won, right?
Yeah, see,
And they can have.
we should have a map.
Getting me my.
Where you go?
Right,
Should
I
say,
agree.
look, I'm getting this in university.
We
Instead of
talked about
navigating
that.
all.
Yeah.
With questions,
Why,
trial and errors.
why we're doing this, 'cause we're trying to finally get the information we have to have.
Give to the next generation.
Yeah, so it's all here, so it's all ready.
Yes, we should have a intro packet.
So cute, thank you.
There you go.
Oh, I got playing. Having more notebooks. with
That's
myself.
You can't have a funeral home in a C three, you can have it in a C two. There's some interesting things on here, I don't know, I think one of the things, maybe this is more for Lene, because we haven't been here for all of our conversations, but we're starting to notice with some of the discussions we've had about commercial, that most of it was done in the '70s.
Mhm.
And it hasn't really changed much, which explains why it still looks like the 1970s.
Mhm.
And then maybe this is some of the stuff that we need to be looking a little more in and saying, what businesses, what are we allowing, where do we want it, especially with, you know, so much of it bumps up against residential.
Residential, yeah. Yeah. And it is interesting because the whole idea behind the C3 is to protect residential.
So a review of what's in there already and
Mhm.
what should and shouldn't be.
Yeah,
Sometimes we've added it because that one fit, but should we have added it? Overall, right, for a particular property, because you exposed everybody else by
Well-
doing it.
and there seems to be a habit of, oh, somebody comes and asks a question, so we
Right.
go through the process and add it. So how many things,
Like we had that Widow Center.
yeah,
But would it, should it be something we did in general?
right, as
Because
opposed
it did fit that property, but doesn't fit
every,
every.
exactly.
So, you
And
know, that's
key,
something
right?
you really have to
go
think.
from a master plan perspective,
Mhm.
Yep.
instead of this piecemeal PD zone everywhere, you know what I mean?
Well, and that is another question that I had off of this, especially looking at some of the things coming before us and coming down the pike, like especially looking in northeast Orem and southwest Orem, like there's kind of some development stuff going on there, and like what is really the plan? What do we really want to grow in those areas, and what do we want to maybe zone for?
And it's almost like, what do we want to invite?
Yes,
Right.
exactly.
Well, and I always think about the impact, right? Because if we allow certain things, that has a ripple effect, the impact, right? We went through the transportation plan, right? And it's like, well, if we invite that, everything we removed might have to be put back on because we invited things that shouldn't. Because they're incrementally impacting other infrastructure.
I know.
So I agree. I appreciate you doing that. I also think it's interesting that churches and driving schools are not allowed in a C three. Some interesting things. So, do you have any questions on it, or?
I'm surprised how many differences there are between C3 and C3 comes out of discussing the other.
Yeah, because it seemed like it was almost the same, right?
It doesn't mean that see the difference now, it's significant.
Mhm. And then there's and then of course you add in the height and the setback,
That's right.
and really C three is there to buffer the neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Yeah, you wanna protect the neighborhood, see.
You
You wanna use the neighborhood, see. That's,
When you drive around behind Pizza Pie Cafe, just go take that first left, and that first cul-de-sac there, and you can see the difference, because there's a wall.
Yeah.
Again, I mean,
Mhm.
it's only 35 feet, I'm sure, but it's still.
And you can see why they were seeking the C2 versus C3 approval.
Yes,
I mean, I think there are more differences than there are the same, actually, look at them out of red lines.
The combos that went in there might have been older than the house and stuff.
No, but like some of them you go like, why not commercial janitorial versus like. Yeah, and some of these, I don't know, I think it is.
Probably because of the shipping and the chemicals that are in the area.
That's true, that could be it. I didn't realize how much limitation there were on where there was.
You know,
Because when you talk commercial,
and
who's gonna be coming in, it's not gonna be a regular retail.
That's what I was thinking, and what hours.
I think it might be a good area to kind of think about, and consider, especially if we look towards redevelopment, so.
Which I would love your research into that, because we're working with legislators and
That's fine.
other leaders in
My
town
guys
right
get
now.
sayonara.
I'm pretty involved with them.
That triggers the
Try
whole thing.
to help bring attention to what they're now calling legacy communities, that's the name.
The new name.
Yeah, and so, you know, balancing that with housing and with our revitalization needs of housing.
Right.
We need that for business too, so I appreciate you're taking that perspective now, I didn't know you guys were, so.
We can't, I mean, we've been kind of working through some of the basics lately, but that is something I would like to get to. I mean, I said that when. Cause I was one of the only people who was here when we eliminated the State Street Master Plan, but we did that vote and. That was what I said, that was, we can't just leave it, we need to be thinking, how do we really want to redevelop State Street? And all of that, so I would love to start delving into that for both housing and for commercial, but like what.
Yeah.
What's available, what tools do we have to look at for redevelopment, how can we help spur redevelopment, I think, is that stuff you guys would be interested? Yeah, okay,
That's why I left home.
yeah, I know it is, right?
Properties.
Yeah.
Down State Street, because most of them. If we can.
Yeah.
It'd be worth it to come back now.
Yeah.
That'd be worth it to come
It
back.
would be, absolutely.
And now it'll change. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, at least that patience. Patience? I almost lost him. Yeah, well.
Okay,
I took my money on a big old.
is there any more questions about the C2 versus C3? We have a
How about
C1 technically.
Do we have any C one?
C one was designed originally along 800 so you see those small. Stansbury or
Storage auto, is that one?
Is it where Mac is?
Oh, Bowman, West Street.
So a lot of those will.
Is that C1?
Industrial small office
Like
buildings
that.
along 8th, the frontage.
Yeah,
So you got the
Towards Canyon,
Horse Canyon and then there's.
across by the Osmond, or
Stratford
yeah,
Office Park.
west of Osmond.
It's like the office park area.
Okay.
Yeah.
So those are C one, and it was designed purposely originally for the 800 north corridor.
The old strap.
So the majority of C1 requires it to be look like a residential. So you look, most of those look more like colonial height home look, so that was designed to do it, it was height limitations, so it was designed purposely for that. It can be used other places, obviously. That's kind of where we have the C2 zone.
Are
Or
there
C1.
uses that are typical, is that like your professional services?
So there's no retail in the C1, it's all office. Office.
My daughter's there.
you said it was created specifically for C1, that is, or C1 was created for that.
Yeah.
So
It's
what
that
was the?
big office plaza right by
So
there.
before that was
Or
this,
there's-
designation C2 then?
Oh,
So none of that was, it was all
Dave,
residential.
Jason, I don't wanna have to separate you.
Well,
We
I
can't
mean,
hear
the actual designations themselves, so
It was residential, so R8, R.
I understand
Yeah.
that, but
So there was no designation along that corridor until the
I
C1.
understand designations that existed for commercial were what were they called?
Oh, he's saying it was C1 around before that.
Yeah.
You created that.
Created specifically for,
And is anyone even still using it?
on occasion, we'll get requests to rezone to a C1 on the corner of across apartments and the corner of that was rezoned. Time flies, but it's probably 3 years ago when they requested, used to be an old house.
Case Journal's house.
And that, the dash strip came in and rezoned it, so that we have application rezoned.
Yeah.
There's also PO, professional hours, which is also indexed.
This can PO, well, I guess there's a difference between PO and C1, but.
PO has a little bit of different standard, but it's a design for office community.
Okay. Well, thank you. We will adjourn so we can get ready for our formal meeting. Thank you, guys.
But that is.
Always like 10 degrees colder in here.
I know, it's all true here.
Yeah, no direct sun in the afternoon. That's very possible. Let's see, where's Jim C? Oh, that's easy.
That'd be the safe side.
No, take care of something.
That's it. I'm doing good, how you doing, sir? Haven't seen you in a while. How you doing?
That's what I said.
That's right.
Really? I always.
Yes, of course. You know what you want to say?
I always contemplate.
Oh. So open it up. Do you want to say something? Okay. Where? Perfect.
I'm all.
Hey. Bring it up.
I might get 2 degrees.
No, I mean, you want to. Okay. Yeah, I'm the president of our family. I can speak for you.
Get ready for next time.
Two different things. It's the same. I don't want to say, we'll make sure that it's all in this. It's the stuff in the past. All right, we'll go ahead and call this, my mic on?
Doesn't sound like.
It doesn't sound like my mic's on. Is my mic on? Can anyone hear me? Dave, can you hear me?
Test.
Test. There we go. Can we hear me now? Okay.
You can't hear it, David?
You can't hear it?
in the back.
I mean, I can talk really loud, but I think we'd rather have the mic. 1 second.
Mine's working, I believe.
Somebody
Can you
says
hear
we're-
me?
today.
Can you hear that?
Okay.
No?
Nope, still nothing.
Yeah. I can usually hear it in the back when
Yeah.
it's working.
This one is working.
Yours is work. Oh, now mine is.
Yours is working too.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, then I will call this meeting of the Planning Commission to order at 4:33 on July 3rd, 2024 in the City Council Chambers in Orem, Utah. And we will begin with an invocation. Would somebody be willing to do that? Jim will. Thank you, Jim.
Our Father in heaven, we express gratitude that we can meet in this assembly today and pray that thy Spirit will be with us, bless us with wisdom and with good judgment. We pray that we will be considerate of one another and earnestly try to understand one another. We are grateful to live in this wonderful community in this great country of America. We're grateful for the freedoms that we enjoy, for those who sacrificed everything to preserve our freedoms. We pray for, again, wisdom and good judgment and for the prosperousness of our community, and we do so in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. I'd like to begin by welcoming Rod Erickson to the Planning Commission. This is his first meeting, and because Murray Lowe has had to resign, this is our entire Planning Commission for right now. So no one is missing or excused. So we will begin with item 3.1, which is a public hearing. It's a map amendment, amending Article 22-5-3A in the zoning map of the city of Orem by rezoning the property located generally at 375 East, 1600 North from the R8 zone to the PRD zone, approximately 2.3 acres, and amending Appendix KK of the Orem City Code. Just as to begin with, this is a legislative matter, so we will have a public hearing, we will listen, and then the Planning Commission will make a recommendation to the City Council. These two items are fairly similar. I want to make sure that as we go into public hearing, I will re-emphasize this. The first item is specifically dealing with the property along 16th North at 375 East by the Murdoch Canal. Jason, would you
Okay.
like to begin?
Thank you. Just to clarify where we're located, the triangle piece, which has been farmed for many years still owned by the Gilmans. You can see it along Murdoch Canal there, 16th North, intersection of 4th East. The property in question is proposed tonight to be rezoned from an R8 zone to a PRD zone, which is a planned residential development. The zone is in place and the purposes are outlined on this slide, but to allow this type of zoning to be throughout the city, to allow a little bit higher density than a typical, and I'll show you the different densities in surrounding area there, but establish standards. So the ordinances are built in place. So the PRD zone is an ordinance that's already got the design standards, it's already got the density maximums, already got the heights, all that kind of stuff built into the ordinance, but it is a rezone. And so the council does have to actually rezone it to that property. So it is at the discretion of the council to whether to rezone it or not rezone it. It's not an automatic rezone. It's at the discretion. So the applicant is proposing 10 units. Let me just through that, and then I'll show you some comparisons on what they're proposing. So the property is 2.3 acres. They are proposing a landscaped area of over 1.44 acres will be open space.
Total density for the project is 4.34 units per acre. Just a comparison to the properties just to the west, the cul-de-sacs, a couple different cul-de-sacs off of 16th. You can see just by comparison, 3.7 acres there, it's just 3.24 units per acre. The one south, 3.23 acres with 11 homes, 3.4 units per acre. The applicants have proposed, or not proposed, but provided to us a layout that could be done. That's at 3.40 units per acre. That's 7 lots that they're proposing. What they're proposing now is a PRD up to 10 units. You can see there with a public street. The cul-de-sac would be a public street. PRDs do require any streets other than the deep lot portion. So we do. Let me just point that out really quick. So there are two homes that would be off of this deep lot if approved. The rest of them all front directly onto that public street. The ordinance does allow for that configuration. If I can just point out the visitor parking, the required parking is 2.5 per unit. So there's 2 car garages on each one. So they do have 2 in each driveway. And there's 2 visitor parking stalls here. There's a visitor stall here. And then there's 2 visitor stalls there to meet the 5 visitor parking stall requirement. There is a requirement that they be within 150 feet of the unit served. So these 2 would be here, these 2 here, and then this one would be serve those units. Again, this is currently an R8 zone. They're proposing to go to a PRD zone. These are the proposed elevations that they're proposing. There are single family homes, 27-foot single story with a basement, which does meet the requirement as well. So there's different varieties of homes within the development. It does show the colors and the design scheme, along with the floor plans. Each of them have 2-car garages. And this, of course, you're probably familiar with the location. Currently, corn is growing on the site right now. So any questions that I can address on this plan?
Any questions from the commission for staff? Can you go back one more? There was one you said this was an alternate, but they could do quote unquote.
So we did require the applicant to provide us, if they were to develop it as a single family, at least show us how that could be done. And so this is their, from their engineer, just shows how a single family subdivision could be done.
And those would meet the requirements of an R8?
This would meet the R8 zone. Mm-hmm.
That would only have 7 homes on that, is that
7
correct?
homes.
How, so the smallest lot in this exhibit here would be how many square feet roughly? You know, I can't read that.
Yeah, that's pretty, that's 8, looks like 8,000 square feet. So there's a couple of lots that meet the minimum.
18,000, okay.
The advantage, I guess, of this is that these would allow for accessory apartments. A PRD zone does not allow accessory apartments. So you'd get 10 units in a PRD. You potentially could get accessory apartments in these, but there's no guarantee you would or wouldn't, right? So.
And with that road going all the way up to the neighbor's backyard, what would you be doing to protect the neighbors to the west from the road?
It would just be, the individual properties could fence it if they chose to, but there would be no requirement as far as the city.
So within the PRD, there wouldn't be any requirements.
So this is the standard subdivision.
That's a standard zone, but it's the same in the PRD. So
the PRD does require a 6-foot fence.
So the PRD does, but just keeping it R8 would not.
Does not. It's up to the discretion of the property owner.
Okay. Any other questions for staff at this time? You do.
So this is this standard road coming into this
It
cul-de-sac.
would be a standard sublocal. Yep. With sidewalks you can see separated until it gets into the cul-de-sac, and there would request that the planning commission approve this, combination curb gutter sidewalk.
The other alternative actually provides ample street parking where this one does not.
Right. I mean, this one doesn't show the placement of the driveway, and this one does.
You're not showing the square footage that I can see on this one that we're looking at
Right, it would
now.
not be lots.
Of the lots.
So the green would be common area
That's what that is,
and the
okay.
homes would be
Okay.
owned, but they would all share the open space.
So in both instances, the public access would be the same, the road would be the same, the
Road would be,
cul-de-sac
they're a
would be
little bit configured a little bit different, but
a little bit
both
different.
of
I
them
can
are
see
public
that.
streets.
Okay,
Yes.
I can see that.
Yep.
And I'm sorry, what's the width on the PRD of the street going in?
So they're the same.
It's
So
the
it'd be
same.
a-
Okay, so it would be the same.
Yep.
Okay.
Let me see if I got the,
So you mentioned common area. Is the developer proposing to have an HOA?
they were required to have an HOA for a PRD.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any questions at this time? Are we ready? Okay, if the applicant would like to come forward, and you're welcome to sit next to Jason if you'd rather sit down, or you can be at the mic over there.
Hi, I'm Julie Smith, the applicant.
Corey Turner, the applicant.
I'd like to, just for shortage of time, and I appreciate council and staff and the neighbors showing up today, the day before a holiday. So I'm going to give you a little bit of history and facts, and then just a little bit about the first piece. So it's going to be the same, so I'm just consolidate for you to shorten the time. So I'm going to refer to the triangle as the east piece and the west parcel as the house parcel, because it was owned originally by Mr. Harley Gilman. So the house property was originally owned by Harley Gilman's father, who farmed the ground, and Harley purchased 9 acres of the farm, and he later developed it into R18 subdivision and kept the home and the 1.9 acres by his house. The triangle parcel is a remnant parcel left over by the Gilman's cousin, Mr. Harley Gilman's cousin. And Harley did a lot of land development in Orem and farmed, and he didn't like paying taxes, so he did a lot of 1031s, and he 1031 into that triangle parcel. He was a good friend of mine. He, I don't know if you know this or not, was the longest serving city council member here in Orem. So he did serve on the council for a long time. He passed away in 2021, and his wife passed away in 2023. His remaining children are selling the 2 remaining parcels, and like when children do when their parents pass, they're hoping for the highest, best price out there for the ground. So here we are today. A few facts. The average household in Utah is 1.25 persons. In 2021, Orem, as part of the Moderate Income Housing Plan report, one of the strategies was to rezone for density necessary to assure production of medium income housing. And the summary for the strategy was for new planned residential developments, a PRD, allowing for higher density and if certain standards were reached. Housing demand is only getting worse, and a PRD helps with the housing demand with very little impact. Generally, the buyers in a PRD are older and have less trips per day than, I'll call it, a younger household. These trips are generally midday and not during peak hours. There will be uniform lighting throughout the project. Projects similar to what we are proposing would be Penny Lane on 8th East, Meredith Manor, which is across the street, and Ivory's Da Vinci Place. They're all beautiful projects, and those are twin home projects, and ours are single family, but they're all PRD projects and in high demand. The PRD gives people options in the housing market. For example, those who want to downsize, they want to have a nice home, be able to stay in the neighborhood, and most of all, have no yard work. As you mentioned, there will be an HOA, and the HOA will maintain all lighting, landscaping, and create continuity throughout the entire project with their landscaping. Okay, the triangle parcel that we're talking about it originally had 11 when I had my neighborhood meeting. And after working with staff, we needed to lose one to get the required parking. So we're down to 10 single families on that with a density of 4.34 units per acre, which is still extremely low. As you can tell, this is a really hard piece to develop with the shape. The traffic will be onto 1600 North, which is an arterial street. And I'll have Corey speak to the units.
The units that we propose to develop here, you saw briefly the architectural renderings and kind of a neighborhood rendering, are a very nice quality home. We expect that these will be between 3,000 and 4,200 square feet. So we've got some variety in offering between 1 and 3 bedrooms on the main level and then full basements as well. These homes, we do, as Julie mentioned, expect that it might be more of a move-up home than a first home, opening up more availability of other types of homes to other buyers as well throughout the community. While there is no restrictions that we're proposing on who the buyer may be, it's not a 55 and older community. We do expect that this home will appeal to more established homeowners.
Thank you. Do you have any questions for the applicant from the Planning Commission?
I do, please. So the transportation master plan calls for widening of 1600 North. And significantly, it would be along that bend. How does that impact your proposed development?
I'd refer that to Taggart, our city engineer.
Sure. Yeah, I'll have John come address that.
Which one? Right there? John Dorney, City of Orem, traffic engineer. I just got in late, so they didn't know I was here. I think the master plan, that was taken out. The widening of 1600 North was removed from the master plan. There are versions of it that show it, but the final adopted version is not in there.
Or could I get a copy of that updated master plan?
I'll get it to you.
Thank you.
Yep.
If I could just clarify, that is east of State Street. So west of State Street on 16th North will still be widened by UDOT.
Yes. Okay. Any questions for the applicant from the commission? Any more? Okay. Okay, sorry. I don't know. We're oddly silent. Okay. Then I will thank you. And we will go to the public hearing portion of the meeting. So we will be, and you guys are welcome to stay there because I'm sure there's going to be more questions and you've got a whole nother one to do too. So we're going to go ahead and open the public hearing to the public. That's redundant, but that's the way you say it. At this time, if you could come forward one at a time and to the microphone and please state your name. Your comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Specifically, if you could come and give comments regarding this property. I know there's the 2, but if you could limit your comments to this property for this time, and there will be a public hearing for the other property in a few minutes. So I will go ahead and open up the public hearing for that.
My name is Thomas Thurston. I just have a question regarding that property. Seemed like the common area was fairly large. Would there be any facilities for recreation, for example, if the families with kids wanted to come in there, like for, play equipment or anything like that? Is there any plan for that or possibility?
We will, you need to address us.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And I can get them to answer that question when we're done.
Okay.
I will have them answer that question.
Good, okay.
So I will note that down.
That's just a question about that property.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Stephanie Visnaw. I hope you all received the letter that I sent you. I sent it in May and then I resent it again this week as a refresher. And in that letter, there were 60 signatures stating that they would like these two areas to stay R8. Unfortunately, I didn't separate them out in the signatures. I could try to figure it out, but in discussing it with the gentleman who lives right backed up to this, he and his neighbors are all very concerned about this development and they would like to see it stay R8. In the letter, if you've read it, hopefully you have read it, because it doesn't just address this proposed development, it's any future development that may come up across your desk. They would like to see this stay R8 just to keep the zoning consistent and just to maintain what exists all around it. They did show some areas that have smaller homes, but there's concern with that deep lot, especially. When I asked at the neighborhood meeting how emergency vehicles would access, in my understanding of these long streets, there needs to be a hammerhead at the end so that an emergency vehicle can turn around. If there's parking on those ends with the visitor parking, that concerned me. So I asked at the neighborhood meeting, how is emergency vehicles going to get down the big long street if you're at unit 8 or 9? And the answer was, they'll probably park on 1600 North and come around. I'm like, no, if I'm having a heart attack, I want them to come to my front door. I want them to be able to come down to my unit 8 or 9 and be able to access the home. So hopefully the DRC figured that out and this meets code for emergency. I would assume it does, but that was a concern with a lot of those who saw this map, is just the emergency access and also with just the increased density, wanting to maintain it to R8. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, make one last call if anyone would like to come forward to speak specifically to this property.
Thank you. My name's Ken Millett. I'm a Orem resident for 30 plus years. Very familiar with this property and the other property. I'll be back up here in a few minutes. But I just wanted to say I'm against changing the zoning just based on principle. I don't think we should change zoning just so someone can make more money off a property. It just doesn't seem right to me. With something zoned R8 residential, and it looked like from the earlier slide, it could very easily accommodate some nice lots. We could develop some nice homes on those lots. So it doesn't seem like a real reason to change this other than somebody wants to make a buck and off of other people. So I disagree with that. Thanks.
Thank you.
So I'm Paul Millett. I'm an Orem resident as well over, not at this one, but the other property. But I'm concerned on both of these in the fact that where do you put the garbage cans? Like for a lot of times we have not just one now, but two, the recycle and the garbage. And how are those supposed to be placed on the street? And how is the truck supposed to come in? And how is the truck supposed to turn around? It's not an emergency vehicle, but I think that one's also an important one for being able to have that, maybe that hammerhead sort of position. And it looks like when they have the two adjoining or the driveways that are just right smack dab next to each other, how does 8 and 9, how do they put their garbage cans out? Does it have to be in front of their driveway? And then since it's not just one house, I mean, they could put it right in front, but it's two houses. So you have two people putting their garbage cans right in front. Going to work's kind of hard if you're trying to put it out the day before. So it has to be the day of. They're more likely to miss. And that's more of a frustration, but I think that should be considered as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Lynn Pulley. I guess I'm the senior resident on 1600 North. I've lived there longer than anybody else. We built our home. Well, I moved there in 69. I've watched that area slowly turn into a crowded, almost undesirable place to live. If it wasn't for the fact I live on my wife's grandpa's land, I'd have moved a long time ago, just because I don't like people that close to me. I have dubbed 1600 North is I-16. We put up with the noisiest, rotten people that drive up and down that road, revving their engines, and they took my front parking away and made it a turn lane. And now it's a launch, I guess, for NASA. They come up that road and it narrows and it's beep, 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 because the people want to crowd in. It's a mess. So now they're talking about, well, when they took the frontage of, they've taken my frontage twice, moved it back. The last time they said, oh, in 10, 20 years, you're probably going to have to move because we're going to widen I-16 and make it an honest to God freeway. And I says, why don't you buy it now so I can get out of here while I still can? I just went through a death situation, and unfortunately I lived. And I still have to put up with this kind of stuff. People want to take a place that maybe 5 good homes could be put in there, and they want to cram in 10. Why? Why should the city cow down for that? And all I can do is, I've said my piece. I'm against this. We can't go higher. Let's find crooks and crannies to stuff stuff in. I spent 28 years with the Guard, and I went to several different countries where I've seen poor people. That's what we're going to have.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Tacey Zollinger. I would like to ask a question. Looking at this map, there's a lot of green space that's in a shared common area that will be controlled by an HOA. And I'm looking at like I don't know what a lot of people call them, but the little grass strips in front of the sidewalks. And I know that we are living in a state that is often concerned about droughts. And I'm hoping to hear the developers speak towards any sort of drought resistance landscaping that they're planning on doing. Just that's a lot of green space that's going to be taking up a lot of water.
Thank you.
William Blyle. I have a couple questions for the builder, but I'll ask you guys. So one is, I think they mentioned that the average number of people per household is 1.5. Here in Utah, it's 3.09. So I don't know where those numbers come from. I don't hear any sources for that. I'd also like to know what the average size of the homes was. Again, they kind of went over that really quick. And then when they had the meeting, the public meeting, my understanding was they were including the size of the garage in the size of those homes, which I don't think that's a standard practice either. So I just like to know what the size of the homes are, whether they're including the garage in that amount, and then also where they get their number for 1.5 people per household.
Okay,
Thank you.
Okay, we'll have another last call if anyone else would like to come forward on this specific lot. Okay, then I will close the public hearing portion of this. And there were some good questions. So I will just go ahead and ask them back to you. There was a question about playground equipment and public access to the land within the triangle. Like, is there going to be playground? Is there going to be equipment? And will there be public access, or is it just for the HOA?
We are not planning on having any facilities, any amenities within the HOA. At this point in time, we see no reason to provide those, with Murdoch Canal being right there as a recreation amenity.
Okay. And then there was questions about emergency access, and this may actually be more for city staff, and concerns about particularly the flag lot and whether or not emergency vehicles would be able to safely get in there.
So can I address that
You can
question?
ask, yeah, you can ask it.
So the 150 feet is a requirement for a turnaround. The fire marshal has looked at this and this is less than 150 feet. So in the event that they cannot turn around in the driveways, that they will back out. So it meets the standard for the fire department.
Okay. And then the final question was, what was the average house size again for this?
Ranges from 3,000 to 4,200 square feet. That's on the main and the basement. And that does not include the garage space.
Okay. I believe that answered the questions. Would you like, I was going to open it up to the commission if they had any more questions that they'd like to ask of staff or of the applicant.
I'm curious what your expected price per unit is going to be.
The price range for the units will be between 800,000 and 1.1 million.
So you mentioned the 3,200 to 4,000 square feet. That was main level and the basement. Did I understand that correctly?
Yes, when I say 3,000 square feet, that's total, so that's 1,500 per floor.
Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions?
I had a question for the city. We, it was a little while back, we had city meetings about the intersection for the bike trail and stuff. And we talked about tunnel accessing, basically moving it east or west from the intersection, having a tunnel under the road for the walkers and the bikers. This would negate any of those discussions. Has that been thought through or talked about?
Yeah, the tunnel is probably not an issue, but the overpass could be an issue. But that's nothing has been decided at this point, whether it's going to be a different with a crosswalks or a tunnel or whatever. But yeah, we don't own the property, so yeah, we wouldn't have any say whether or not they develop this or not, unless the city bought it.
Right. Well, my question is, have we considered those discussions in this rezoning, since we've talked about potential acquisition of some of the property
Right. And the city wouldn't have the ability, based on that issue alone, to recommend denial, because that's not something that we could do. We don't own the property. We don't control it. The city, obviously, city council can make the decision that it's not timely and they don't want to rezone it. That's at their discretion. But that's not a reason, in my opinion, that we can say, well, we don't because we may put a bridge there. The city would have to buy it, work with the owner to say, hey, sell us this piece of property because in the future we want to do that. We'd have to buy it up front and not use that as an excuse.
If I could add, the city has withdrawn their offer to buy that property officially.
Okay. Hasten?
I'd like to get the answer to the question about the average household size.
Yeah, that was from a census. I can find it and give it to them.
From the census.
I hope this doesn't sound contentious, but ma'am, you made the comment earlier that this would help with the moderate income housing needs of our city. I don't understand personally, and again, I'm not trying to sound contentious, how homes priced in the $800,000 to $1.2 million helps alleviate that situation. It seems to me, I'm a senior and I wouldn't move into that. And I probably have the financial means to do so, but I just don't know how that addresses that need in our city. I don't know if you want to comment on that, or it's just an observation I'd like to make for the record.
Yeah, I was just, quoting from your study, the need for housing, and the particular study that was done. I think the city was asked to address, the shortage of housing. And I was just quoting exactly the verbiage on that. This does provide a few more homes available, which we do have a huge shortage on right now.
If the lots were not rezoned and you went with the R8 with 7 lots there, would the home prices be similar?
Probably higher.
Probably higher. Jim?
Well, a concern that I have is consistent with one of our comments made. That is that it's currently zoned as R8. And you stated the desire is to better monetize this property. And that concerns me. It's like you play a game, the rules are set. And now if we can change them to our betterment, then approve our request. Years ago, my family lived in an area where they changed the zoning adjacent to our property and allowed for higher density. And it so affected the quality of our lives that we sold our home and moved. So I can absolutely understand the concern that was expressed. I mean, an R8 looks like it would fit well. So I just for being able to make more money, and I understand that. I mean, we all have to make more money.
Yeah, like I said, this was very expensive property. It's not, we want to make the maximum amount of money. It's how can we make, what
I
project,
understand.
what can we put on here with the cost of the ground to make it work? It
Yeah.
doesn't work if it's straight residential.
Yeah.
You already own the property or you just have the rights to the property
We have it under contract.
under contract to purchase? Whether that zoning goes through or not, you'll own it.
No,
I see.
no, it's subject to.
It's subject to, okay.
It's pending.
As zoning goes through, you'll buy it, it makes sense. It doesn't, you won't. Okay. Does that answer your question pretty
Yeah,
much?
it
Yeah,
does.
they don't
And
own
in
it.
fact, I talked
Yeah.
to the family and he said if he would try to do the exact same thing,
Yeah.
Do what I need to.
the current owners would.
Well, the current owner will try to do the same exact thing?
Yeah, he goes, that you have to maximize it, for the family, right?
No,
The kids that
Not
are
right.
left, they want as much money as they can from dad's property. So the way to maximize that for them.
correct. But if you,
Yeah.
like you said, if you change the rules of supply and demand,
Mhm.
that's one thing, but they already know what's going on with it. It's either they won't be able to sell it at higher price because nobody would be willing to pay for it if the zone doesn't change, or it's just going to yield to the market. That's all what's going to happen. But now I understand that. Thank you.
This may be too hypothetical of a question, so I recognize that. But what would you have to do to this land to make it be more of a moderate income housing? Is it a pure density thing? Is it? Maybe that's a city answer as well, more so than you, but
The median home price right now in the state of Utah is $550,000.
yes, it is.
And most of those that can afford a $550,000 home are having to make $140,000 a year to do that. It is more of a supply and demand question, where there is very little supply in the city of Orem, and the demand is high. It's a very, very great place to live, very desirable. I don't think you'll get there unless you've got really, really high density.
Mhm.
Yeah, and you're talking then more, a townhome type product, or and even in that case, you might not still get that medium, home price, might not achieve it in that case.
I think the average townhome price, the lower end starting at 470.
I have a comment.
Yeah, go ahead.
That's honestly, this is the most honest answer we got from a developer.
Yeah, thank you.
Seriously. But, and I understand your point. If I wanted to buy that land, I would want to do the same thing. And you've done this before, I'm sure. You just know the rules. And, but in the same time, dictating what goes in there is a tough job. But thanks for the honest answer.
Okay, any other questions from the Planning Commission? Okay. You good? Okay, all right. Okay, so, good.
Zoning, if the zoning doesn't go the way you like to see it, is your money refundable? You put a deposit on it pending zoning, I'm assuming. Zoning change. Did you put a deposit on the land?
You lose your deposit.
Did you lose
the
the
money?
deposit?
Has money gone hard?
We have some hard money on the
You
land
do?
now. Yes.
Use some earnest money?
Not the full earnest money deposit, but some of it has gone hard at this point, yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, then we will move to motion and discussion by the planning commission. If someone would like to put a motion forth, then we can discuss it, so. Or we can,
I don't really have a motion to, but I
Yeah,
do have
go
some discussion.
okay,
So we spent a month, 2 months going over the transportation master plan. You know, Rod mentioned the widening, it doesn't exist anymore because of all those discussions and the mayor and council recognizing the need for quality of life. And I just see projects like this pushing us closer to having to put it back on the plan. And so we give you 3, 4 homes, but now we have to take 30 from people who've lived there for 60, 70 years because we need a wider road. All this stuff becomes additive and kind of destructive. It concerns me even contemplating the rezoning for those very reasons.
but I'm just playing a little advocate here. 7 homes will go in, 7 homes could go in.
Right.
And our schools need it. I mean, we need families.
Sure.
That's part of the character and nature. But I do agree with you. What do we gain if we have to take homes away from other people to expand roads? And you're specifically
Yeah.
talking about widening 16th around the bend
Yep.
to 8th.
All the way down to State.
Mhm.
And we're right on top of an intersection too, which is
Mhm.
known to be chaotic to begin with. And so it's all additive. I mean, the R8 is a planned for. It's a known quantity that's always been there. But we're just changing it up and increasing it by doing these little projects little by little. And, these are not going to be empty nesters looking for more of a retirement. These are big houses. These are not 55 plus units where I just don't want to do yard work and I want a smaller space. It's a big house. I mean, it's bigger than my
mine. I
house.
was just gonna say
Yeah.
something. It's bigger than mine.
So it's not empty nesters. These are just, maybe there are people who don't want to mow their lawn, but with the HOA fees, you could pay somebody to mow your lawn.
Can I ask Gary a procedural question? Can we hold the motion on this one while we do the public hearing and discuss the other property and then do them both, not together, but do the motion and voting
Yes.
after we hear that?
Yes.
Okay, I thought we could. If that is okay with the planning commission, maybe we go ahead and hear the next property and then we will still do the votes individually. I mean, the motions individually for each property. Okay, then we will pause on item 3.1 and we will move to item 3.2, which is also a legislative item. So we will be making a recommendation to the city council. It is also a public hearing. It is a map amendment amending Article 22-5-3A and the zoning map of the city of Orem by rezoning the property located generally at 1573 North, 275 West, from the R8 zone to the PRD zone, approximately 1.91 acres, and amending Appendix KK of the Orem City Code. Before you start your presentation, this is probably just the lawyer in me. They're both saying Appendix KK. Are these going to go in as the same?
Same appendix.
Same appendix? Okay.
All PRD's projects go into Appendix KK.
Okay. I thought
So
they
they're
got their own
independently
number.
labeled, but they're all into that same section.
Just, okay, for PRDs, they're all in the same one.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Now you may start your presentation.
So this property, as described, was a vacant part of the Gilman property. It is currently zoned R8. Very similar in the request into a PRD. There happens to be 10 units on this one as well. They do have the 5 parking stalls that are required for the 10. It is a public cul-de-sac street coming in. You can see the same layout as the other one. So not much difference on that other than it is 1.9 acres, a little bit smaller. The density is 5.26 units per acre. The proposed subdivision that they had given as an example would be 3.16 with 6 lots.
Could you go back and enlarge that so I could see the lot sizes? The square footage?
So they're
Thank
very
you.
large. There might be one that they could squeeze in another lot, but it's probably a 6 to 7 lot subdivision. And then the elevations are the same. So similar product, I guess the same product, just different location. So be glad to address any questions on this project.
Questions? For staff at this time? No? Okay. Then we'll have to do, oh, go ahead.
Question I had, the setbacks from the adjacent property, are they all compliant with the 25 feet? Is it that, what,
Yeah, they meet the standard, yes.
the what?
They meet the standard of the setbacks, yes. For a PRD zone.
For a PRD zone?
Yep. So yeah, you can see the 20,
I thought it was 25 feet, but it's 20 feet?
20 feet for a PRD under a density of 6 units per acre.
Oh, yeah, there it is. Okay. Yep. Okay. So are they 20 feet or it looks like they're.
They're 20 feet.
Depends
The
on where it
trade-off,
was.
trade-off
Yeah.
is the maximum height is a 27-foot tall versus 35 at a single family home. So the trade-off in the setback is that they're required to be under the 27 feet.
Okay. And the parking issues in this are met?
So they meet the letter of the law. As
The
far
letter
as
of
the
the law.
PRD standards are concerned, they have 5 visitor parking stalls. They have very deep driveways, 2-car garages. So
I'm going to ask about unit 10 because if I'm spending almost $1 million on a house, I don't know if I want 4 parking spots right outside my front door. Is their driveway even long enough to park 2 cars there? Okay, between the parking spots and the. I know. I mean, it'll be great when you have a party. Okay. Any other questions for staff? Okay, then we'll go to the applicant if you'd like to give a presentation on this property.
Just a couple comments. So, as Jason said earlier, if this was a standard subdivision with 6 lots, that you could have the ADU additional rental unit in part of your home, where you could double literally the homes in both neighborhoods. So here you go from 6 to 12, and the other one was what, 8? I can't remember lots, and you go to 16. So the PRD does lock you into that number of homes where in a subdivision you are allowed the ADUs. The other thing that both the triangle and this piece does is all the driveways are at least 20 feet deep. So you do have the 2-car garage, and then you could park 2 cars. Some of these, and in the triangle, obviously, you could put a lot more cars in your driveway. But how the city standard reads is you only get to count the garage, and then you have to have the additional spaces, which we have on this one. At the neighborhood meeting, that was one of the big concerns was parking. I know a couple of the neighbors on the west on the street, there's a house that has rentals or rented rooms or whatever, and parking is a premium. They park on the street, and that was their concern. That would continue to be a concern if this was a standard subdivision, they could do the same thing. So I think this does limit the people that live there in the amount of parking as opposed to a standard subdivision. Do you have anything to add?
Thank you. I do have a question for you because I inadvertently looked over it when I was asking questions. Somebody asked about landscaping and what kind of the intended landscaping is going to be, or drought resistant landscaping. If you've done your landscaping plan yet.
The honest answer is we haven't gotten that far down the road yet. But in the park strips, there will be the normal landscape, and we'll meet the city standards for landscaping for the park strips.
Okay, thank you.
Question, why wouldn't you build them at the normal zoning and just add all the ADUs, you'll be able to charge more money for it. You'll make more. I mean, I'm turning one of my basement an ADU. It says 600-700 square foot home. I don't need the basement. And I know when I sell it, I'll make more and more money than I can sell it for right now. So I mean, you could accomplish financially a good gain selling the homes with ADUs. And then nobody will complain. It qualifies for the zone. You don't have to go through this.
That is a good point. The purchase price is going to be much higher because you've got fewer lots there, and so the ability to get into the home to begin with would be more difficult. But that's a good point to make there. The density then, would rather than be 10 units per subdivision would be 14 with ADUs, or in this case 12 in this particular one.
Yeah, I understand, but one is permitted, you don't have to go through the fight, and one is not.
Yeah.
It's also a point for the residents. It's not,
I guess that as I've done this for 40 years, the PRDs that are in Orem, they are highly desired. They're nice projects. It's something to be proud of if you're a developer. Ivory's is one of the most sought after projects. Chatwin did the other two projects. They're beautiful. If you drive in them, the landscaping, they're highly desirable. And if, as a developer, if you want to do something nice for the city, the PRD is the way to go. Standard subdivisions are easy, and there's no guarantee that somebody's going to take care of their yard. They're going to park cars in their driveway. With HOA, you're guaranteed a nice project. And as a developer, you can say, I did this project, and it's something you can be proud of.
I understand. I'm just trying to give all the options available as a citizen. Consider, wanting or not wanting it. They need to know it could be 10 units or 14. And it's a choice. So, because you have the choice to do it. You can just have 7 lots with larger size homes with all 80 units, and you'll sell them considerably for more than you would sell one, since it has accessory apartment that will have an income. But it's just an option to consider.
I have a question for Jason. Did you have a slide to show the density of the neighborhood around it?
I don't. They're very similar to the one we showed before. So around that same density.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions?
Why are the sidewalks, why do we have the grass strips? That doesn't seem standard.
That is a standard street. The sublocal street requires a separated sidewalk.
So because it's PRD.
No, the standard street, the sublocal street, which is any standard subdivision or any PRD that's a public street, requires a separated sidewalk. Any new subdivision now in the last 20 years requires that separated sidewalk.
I could probably help with that, and Mr. Dorney could attest to this, because I asked the same thing. It's people feel safer walking on a sidewalk that is separated from, you got the curb, you got a planter, and then you have the sidewalk. People feel safer with that little separation, as opposed to, I call a monolithic pour, where you pour your curb and your sidewalk at the same time. People walking on that don't feel as safe as when you have the planter. So that's the reason the city's adopted this, in my understanding.
Yeah, so it's a standard. It's not a request. It's something that we require them to do.
One other rationale for the hardship, in addition to feeling of safety, is allows for trees, and trees provide shade for pedestrian use as well. It also encloses the space between curb to curb. That tree wall provides a psychological sense to drivers that it's a narrower space rather than a wider space. And narrower spaces subconsciously influences drivers to slow down.
Well, I'd say it's a cul-de-sac, so that very nature would negate any speed.
Just the general principles.
And I'm going to ask a question just to prove to the citizens we do read their emails. Can you turn a trash truck around in this cul-de-sac?
So it's a standard cul-de-sac, it's 96 feet wide. That is the standard, and I'm assuming garbage trucks can do that. They do it all throughout the city.
Okay. And for the if we left it R8, that plan would look the same. The road would be the same and the same configuration again for this one.
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, then we will move to the public hearing for the development at 1573 North, 275 West. Same as before, you're welcome to come back up if you came up before. You'll have 3 minutes. Please come to the mic and state your name, and then your time will begin. And I will open that to you.
Okay, can you hear me? Because I'm having a hard time hearing people. So I don't know if it's because we're behind these guys. But I am Debbie Tucker, and my husband and I live at 274 West. We're directly, our property is right to the south of this development. And so I want to clarify the 1600 North. So is that going to be widened? Not at all. Even so, going west down 1600 North.
Mike, you can answer real quick.
So west of State Street, it is being widened.
But east?
East is not, no longer.
Okay.
From 400 west.
Okay.
down.
So my concern is with 10 homes going in there, and those 10 homes will have at least 2 cars coming out on 1600 North. And as an Orem resident, and I agree with Lynn Pulley, 1600 North is a nightmare with traffic. And we just can't have that many more cars coming out onto 1600 North. There's already so many cars parking on 1600 North, and there's going to be 20 plus cars if this goes through. So that's our concern. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stephanie Visna. I live in this neighborhood, and I've had several residents say they couldn't make it tonight because of the day before the holiday. So they asked me to address some of the concerns. The satellite view map that shows the neighboring properties. This property is 100% surrounded by R8 homes. This one is a little more unique than the triangle shape. It's consistent zoning to maintain the R8. My question is, if it were R8, this is a question for them, you can direct to them, would they maintain an HOA or would it be just set free to be sold as city maintained? And so if it were an R8 and not an HOA, excuse me, if it were an HOA, would they allow for rentals in there? That would be a bylaw they'd have to write in. So they've talked about the ADUs. And ADUs aren't a guarantee. They're trying to, I think, put a little bit of a fear factor, scare tactic in there by saying that the density is going to be doubled if you go R8. That may not necessarily be the case. There's just an unknown there. But the question I do have is, would the R8 be an HOA or would it be traditional sold properties? And how would the HOA manage any rentals, whether it were the PRD or an R8? Because we know that there are homes that are very expensive to live in, and to mitigate that, they rent out rooms. And they've mentioned one nearby that does that. So how they would manage those types of things moving forward.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Nicole Smith, and my husband and I actually just bought the house that we've been talking about that the Gilmans owned. And when we bought the house, we were super excited. Our realtor reached out and we heard there were going to be 6 big houses put in. And sorry, I might cry about it. Very emotional lately. And then we got a notice in the mail that they were going to rezone it. And we actually almost sold our house, similar to you, even though we loved it and we love Orem. A lot of people our age are moving into the PRDs, but we love the neighborhood footprint. So we did almost turn around and sell it right after buying it. And so we're very against the zoning. We're super excited about the R8. We want to have a family. Really excited to have big houses that have families and have a cul-de-sac for us. And so we're against the zoning. Also, if you look at the parking, all of the parking in the street is in front of our house. And because of 1600 North being so busy, the two houses, I think it's two, I can't quite read them, but the two that face 1600 North actually sit on the street. There are 6 cars parked on our street already every day, and it's been that way for about 10 years because the residents on those houses don't park on 1600 North because it's so busy. And so the increased, while I totally second what was said earlier, I don't know why you pay $1 million to have 4 visitor parking spots in your driveway, which just means it would end up in front of our house. So we're very against it. And as well, our neighbor across the street couldn't make it tonight, but she's also very against it for the same reasons. So thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Tyler Smith. Nicole's my wife. Live at 1572 North, just north of this plot of land. I echo everything my wife said. We were really excited about the original proposal of 6 houses and frankly, shocked when we heard there was potential for 10 houses to go in. We are really excited about having a neighborhood of kids and family that I think really aligns with the goals of the mayor and of this city. And that's something that we were really looking forward to. When I look at the map of the proposed 10 homes, honestly, it frankly just looks like a money grab with the visitor parking on somebody's driveway. It doesn't make any sense. And you look at all the houses that surround that piece of land, they all have fences, they all have their own yards. It doesn't make sense for a little pocket to have no fences, to have one giant piece of land that's shared between all the homes. It just doesn't make any sense. I'd also like to second the thoughts earlier about the accessory dwelling unit, more commonly known as a mother-in-law suite, where one person lives, not an entire family. So I think just because there's an accessory dwelling unit does not mean that's a whole family that's going to be living there. Maybe it's even for guests to stay when they come into town. So that's something to take into account. Additionally, with the parking on the street comments earlier, we will definitely get crowded out on our street, and all the visitors will be parking in front of our house. With the addition of those homes, I assume there would be a need for a fire hydrant addition to the cul-de-sac as well, and that would further limit street parking too. So I'm definitely against this motion as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Paul Millett again. I live northwest of the lot that's in question, and I'm against the rezoning and the fact that this one was one's worse as far as you've got so many of the driveways, house 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. All the driveways are compact there. Where do they put all the garbage cans? Going to further crowd up into the neighboring, the houses right above. And that's to me is an inconvenience for them. As well as I'm against HOAs because we already have enough government entities trying to tell us what to do. And I think it's best to have less people trying to tell us what we do with our property. And so this would force an HOA by making it the higher density because they have shared driveways, they have the shared parking lots. And I'd prefer that we don't have that quite high density. I would prefer that we have the basements where you have a rental. A small family can live there. It does increase potentially the traffic. So I would like them to make it a little bit wider so there's plenty of space for cars and for trucks to run through there. As far as how the development goes, but I don't control all of that, but I am concerned with how we're trying to just jump it straight up and then make everything too compact and increase all the traffic potentials on the 1600 North too that's already stressed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thomas Thurston. I'm one of the residents that has a lot just on the west side, on the south side, on the west. I just, first statement, I am opposed to the rezoning. I think that R8 is consistent with the neighborhood values. I'm also concerned with the concept of arbitrary change to a long-term plan for the city and what its neighborhoods and what its environment are like in order to accommodate the financial incentive of a particular developer. I believe that that Orem should have a plan for what it would like its streets and its neighborhood and its traffic and its school systems to be like, and to follow that plan rather than arbitrarily change it on a whim, because somebody can make more money by so doing. And that's what I would like to say.
Thank you.
Hi, Sean, my name is Sean Cutler. I back up to this property. We weren't notified of this meeting or the public meeting. The applicant told us that the city gave her the list of people, so I'd be interested to know if I'm on that list. Because I've lived there for 20 years, so. We took an unofficial poll of our neighbors that also back up to the field. 2 out of the 3 of us didn't receive notification for any of these meetings. The Hendrys were the others that did not. I guess since we're related to Harley Gilman, I guess since we're invoking him, he always told us that there were 5 lots on that property. You've drawn it as 6, but so we're doubling what was there. They're basically twin homes that don't touch. I have, my wife was telling me the other day that, excuse me, she spent almost 15 minutes trying to pull out on the 1600. Obviously that ebbs and flows throughout the day, but we live 1 street east parallel to this cul-de-sac. So we know what it's like trying to pull out onto that road. I have 3 questions that I'd be interested in having them answer if possible. 1, what would the fence or wall look like that borders these $1 million homes? Can you legislate non-street parking in a PRD? I just imagine on a Sunday or anytime these folks getting visits from their families, and it'd be interesting to see a rendering with 30 cars in the cul-de-sac. And then the last, you had asked a question, why would you go through the trouble of doing this versus just doing it how it's zoned? I'll take a shot at answering that. Many developers that put in PRDs end up managing the HOA going forward, so it's income in perpetuity for them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Blair Tucker. I've lived in Orem my whole life. My property is on the immediate south of that. It was my sweet wife that talked first. And I'm very concerned about the traffic, especially for those 2 homeowners that are going to live immediately north of this on that same street. In times past, where we've had a lot of people trying to park and there's not enough room, first thing they do is they park right along, they'll be parking right along the side of where the Smiths live and where Elsie Call lives. And then when that gets full, they're going to start going around the corner. Now you need to come over there on 325, which is the next street over. And to get on 1600 North, sometimes you're sitting there for quite a while. And I understand there's a lot of cars that go up and down through there. But everybody was expecting the 5 lots. And if you put in 10, you've doubled the amount of traffic that's got to go past these two good neighbors right now. We all knew that was a possibility. But sometimes they have more than 2 cars. Sometimes they have a boat. Sometimes they have a trailer. Where are they going to park that if you've got 10 lots in there, right out on the street? They're already putting in some of them out there now. From 325, if you go down about 200 feet, the people that live on the north side parked a lot of cars on the south side where you can't see to get out. We've had to request Orem City, and bless their hearts, they did come out and paint the curb red. So we've got a little more of a buffer, but there's still, the traffic is just unbelievable. I echo what a lot of these people, these good people have said, and I would sincerely ask you to please leave the zoning the way it is. Leave it that way, build a little bigger house, sell it for more money, whatever. But 10 properties in there, I just don't think that's very wise. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tacey Zollinger again. I live on 1564 North, so my property does not touch this, but we bought our home because we fell in love with the view of the mountains from our backyard. And I'm worried and sad that as they add green space and trees, it's probably going to block it out. But I'd also just like to extend a personal invitation to come try turning right or left out of 325 West at 8 a.m. on a Monday morning and see what happens, because you will be late for work.
Thank you.
Clint Foley again. Where I live on the corner, I'm a people watcher. I love to watch stupid people. And when the light on State Street turns red, they back up to 400 West. When it turns red, they back up, clear up to Gilman's Road that goes into this little cul-de-sac-y thingy. So then you get people out of patience. It goes into 2 lanes down there, just by my place. And the crowding, the honking, you got road rage down there. And you got road rage going the other way when they have to crowd back into 1 lane at my place. Throw 20 more cars, because you're going to have not these, but you're going to have those up by the canal. So you're going to have double those vehicles. So are we going to hire more police to control road rage on the street? My question is, where's the brains here? Common sense.
Thank you.
I'm Ken Millett. I live at 288 West, 1500 North. So the back of my home looks onto this property that you're considering now. And just standing on my deck today, looking at the beautiful corn that's grown out there. It's wonderful. So great place to be. I would think more than anything else, if you just look at this picture, is it not obvious that it's R8 all the way around this thing? All the way around. Even if you zoomed out, it would still be R8 all the way around. There's just no reason to change the zoning in this one little tiny square of land, other than somebody wants to make a bunch of money. That's the only reason I can think of. They may say they want to house more people. I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that. I will say that we built our home here 30 plus years ago. And when we built, we got to know Harley and Mary. They're wonderful people. So this is going to sound cliche. I mean, when I talked to Hardy all those years ago, he told me someday we will develop this land. Someday we'll put 5 homes in here, be a beautiful little neighborhood. But I just want to keep it as a farmer. Now, he was a farmer and he wanted to keep it as a farm. There were cherry trees there then. Those got cut down. There's now corn there. There's been all different kinds of things grown there. Just it's what Harley and Mary wanted. They loved it there, right? But he said someday this will be 5 residential homes. We knew that, and we knew that going in there, and that's great. We love that idea. We don't love this idea, right? So it would be cliche for me to say, but I'm going to say, if Harley knew about this, he would be turning over in his grave. This is not something that Harley or Mary would want to have happen. So I'm just going to ask you, please don't rezone this. Let's leave it R8. It will be a beautiful R8 residential neighborhood. Everyone will be happy. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, would anyone else like to come forward? Last call for anyone who'd like to come. Okay, then I will go ahead and close the public hearing at this time. Once again, thank you for your participation and making the effort to be here tonight to help us better understand the situation. Okay, so I'm going to ask the follow-up. There was a couple of questions for y'all. One was, if it's an R8, will it be an HOA? And would it allow rentals? If I butchered that question, I apologize. I believe that was what the question was.
I can answer about if there'll be rentals in the, if it's zoned PRD. And if it's a standard subdivision, no, there's no HOA at all. In a standard subdivision, it's all public roads. You own your own property. So no, there's no HOA on that. And then the other comment, I did have an idea on the gentleman who didn't get notice. Like I said, done this for a long time. I'm guessing what happened is like maybe the staff grabbed the parcel on the west. So they grab it and then automatically just does a radius, and then it punches out all the addresses, and then they give them to me and I make all the mailing, and then I get back to the city and the city. So that's just a guess that maybe she only picked one parcel and not two parcels. That's just a guess. I have no idea, because I did talk to them at the neighborhood meeting and a lot of people did not get notified. And that was just maybe what happened. And then the other item, it wasn't a threat on the ADUs. That's something that the state came out with. And like Jason said, that is allowed in all cities in Utah to have the ADUs on attached homes. And where I live in Orem, most homes do have an ADU, and it's usually, I agree, it's not families. It's usually a husband and a wife that are going to school, and they always have two cars. That's just the standard in my neighborhood in Orem.
Okay, there was also a question concerning what kind of wall or fence will be around it. And please address if that the R8 versus the PRD.
We expect it would be a vinyl fencing or higher quality, but that's what we're looking at right now is the vinyl fencing.
For the PRD?
Yeah.
And if it's R8, it would be
No
none.
fence.
Just what the homeowners put in, if they put anything in. Okay. And then, all right, sorry. I scribbled and now I can't read my own handwriting. There was something about can we legislate non-street parking in a PRD, Jason?
No, it is a public street. And so unless you want us to regulate everybody's parking in the public street, then no.
Okay. And it's considered public even in the PRD?
PRD is a public street. So the standard for a PRD, any street in the PRD is required to be public by ordinance. And therefore it's a public street. People are free to park on the public street.
And then with the notification issue, I don't have our packet in front of me right now.
I'd have to look into it.
You'd have to look into it.
We do a 1,000-foot radius. So if there's some issue, I'd have to look into it. But even if we selected one parcel, it'd still go 1,000 feet to the east or the west. So I'd have to look into it.
Okay.
As we've talked, they don't always show up
They don't always show.
because I don't always get them either. So
We have been having ongoing conversations about notice and how to better notice the public.
And parking, we do have some public parking that is restricted, right?
You'd have to
Like around Orem High, we had parking stickers and things like that.
Yeah, there is around high trafficked schools, right? So that there is a parking permit program, but that's very limited on location.
Yeah, we've got it around some areas with high density that
we wouldn't have it around this type of development. Basically, there's no just a single family area, we wouldn't have a parking permit program. At least we
Right.
don't have
I
one.
could see a demand for it though, from the citizens if you put this kind of infrastructure in. Because you just keep pushing people further and further away from their homes to have any street access.
Yeah, I mean, the city has probably 80 plus PRDs, so it's not an uncommon development in the city. So.
Okay. Any further questions from the planning commission? Any follow-up questions from? Okay, thank you. Any last questions for the developer, or are we going to go to motion and discussion? Ready for motion and discussion? Okay, thank you so much to the applicant, and we will do our portion of it now. So thank you. Okay, we'll go back to item 3.1, which is the triangular property near the Murdoch Canal off of 16th North. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I move that we recommend to the council that we make no change in zoning.
So you're proposing a negative recommendation.
I second that motion.
Okay. Pardon me. So it's a negative recommendation for changing the zoning on this property. Just that's what we're talking about right now. Okay. Since you're new, you get to say anything you want at this point. If you have any comments, if you want to add, if you don't, that's fine.
Thank you. Since I'm a new guy, I appreciate that. I understand what everybody's trying to do here. I just think that we look at the arguments and on both sides, and I agree, it doesn't make any sense to make a change to something that's a long-term plan. And I get that the children would like to maximize their profit. We all do. And I think there's probably more than one way to skin a cat. And as you said, the market will determine the way that goes. Thank you.
Hasten, would you like to make a comment?
Yeah, I just want to make it clear that it has nothing to do with making money or not making money. It mostly has to do with preserving the neighborhoods to what they are. That's really the biggest factor in the decisions, not we want somebody to make less money or more money. In fact, there are ways to do so, like the market would dictate. And yes, if the property is too much money, therefore, hopefully the market dictates that it goes less so we can actually build more affordable housing. We're never going to help that if we keep helping the lots to go for more money just because you can have more homes go on it.
Jim?
Well, I hearken back to the rules of the game being set. The zoning has been in place for a long time. It's consistent with what's in the neighborhood currently. Those that moved in, that bought homes, understood the neighborhood generally and what the future might be based on the current zoning. And so to change it, to allow for more density housing, I just can't support personally.
Thank you. Jerry?
I have a hard time with the whole thing in that it doesn't solve any of Orem's problems, especially the serious problems: affordable housing, traffic. It does nothing to help with either of that problems. And I see no reason to change the zoning. That makes no sense to me whatsoever. But I wish we could work on Orem's problems a little more.
Thank you, Jerry. Mike?
Yeah, I'm just gonna say I echo everything that's been said. With the added concern, these are right on top of two busy intersections.
Yeah.
And it's just gonna exacerbate the problem. I can't imagine how much worse it would be if we had 10 homes worth of traffic on parking on 1600 North right up against the intersection. So.
Thank you. And I'm concerned about preserving the neighborhoods. I mean, I agree with Jerry that we need to tackle some of these problems, and we really do need to tackle affordability. And it doesn't really necessarily progress that. And we also need kids in our school. We need families. That is the nature of these neighborhoods. That's why everyone loves coming to Orem. That is the nature of Orem. This is what we want, is family homes and places for that. So with that, I'm done. You actually get one more say if you have anything you'd like to add, because you made the motion. But if you don't, that's fine.
No, I think my concerns were summarized
Okay.
by you all, so,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, then we will move to voting on item 3.1. That's to make a negative recommendation to the city council to amend the article and the zoning map from an R8 to a PRD at 375 East, 1600 North. And we will begin with the voting with Jim.
I vote yes for the negative.
Yes, that is a good point. If you are for the negative recommendation, it's yes. If you're against the negative recommendation, it's no.
So yes, aye.
Yes, aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
A negative recommendation will be forwarded to city council on that item. Okay, moving on to item 3.2, which is amending from the R8 to a PRD for 1573 North, 275 West. Would anyone like to make a motion on that item?
I move that we make a negative recommendation on this item as well.
I second that motion.
Would you like to make any comments?
Same logic. I think this particular spot, the traffic jumps to my mind as probably the biggest issue for this, as well as the others. But I think that's a key consideration. Anyone who's driven on 1600 North knows it's an adventure as it is today.
No one has to make any comments, but you can if you
I
would
was
like to.
just going to say the comments that were expressed by those who had the courage to come up and speak, and they were all well spoken, I think are grounds for supporting the motion that's been made.
Hey, Jerry, any additional comments? Mike?
I would just point out that right after the light that, we go from 2 to 1 lane. So this one's even more dangerous coming into that section. The traffic is really bad. They've made comments just down, my church building is right off there as well. And you can get stuck there. You really can. It's easier to wind through the neighborhoods to get home sometimes. So I think this one would be even worse than the last one.
Thank you. And my comments are the same. I think preserving the R8 and the nature of the neighborhoods is what's important. So I'm going to assume you have nothing else to add. So I'm going to reread the motion because I failed to. So Rod moved and Jim seconded that we forward a negative recommendation to the city council to amend the article in the zoning map of the city of Orem to rezone the property generally at 1573 North, 275 West from the R8 to the PRD zone. And with that, we'll go to voting.
Aye.
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 A negative recommendation will be forwarded to the city council. Thank you. And just as a reminder to the public, when this comes before city council, please come again, talk to them, let them know. They'll make the final decision on this. So they take our recommendation and then they hear it again at the city council. So thank you for your participation.
When is the next meeting?
Has it been scheduled yet for city council? 1 second.
July or August 13th.
August 13th will be when this will be heard before the city council.
You should get a card.
You'll get cards again.
Chairman.
Some of you will, and they'll look the same, except for the date and time will be in a slightly different box.
Chair, if
Yes,
that's if the developer decides to move forward.
That's true.
Sometimes they choose not to. So just so the public's aware of that.
no, that's a fair point. So I'll rephrase that. So if the developer chooses to go forward with this project, the meeting will be August 13th, or it's currently scheduled for August 13th. Item 4.1 is a review and approval of meeting minutes from June 19th, 2024. It looked good to me. Anyone want to make a motion on it?
I make a motion the minutes are approved, the June 19th, 2024 meeting.
Okay,
I
second.
second.
Okay, Jim moved, Haysom second, that we approve the meeting minutes for June 19th, 2024. Jim?
Aye.
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 I'm not really sure how to vote. I wasn't a member of the committee then.
You can.
I'll say
Oh,
aye.
you can abstain too. I works too. So the meeting minutes are approved. Ryan, I totally forgot your name. Do you have any items for us today?
I just thought I'd give you a quick update on a giant water tank project. They have finished pouring all the concrete associated with 10 million gallons of storage. There's about 188 columns in it. They're now caulking all of the joints and they'll be filling it with water for a leak test in the next few weeks. So the reason I tell you is we're hopeful by September that we'll have the westbound leg of 4 South open again for any of you that use that roadway. Unfortunately, the eastbound lane will remain closed for another year as the contractor builds the pump station and well house, which that will go out to bid for another contractor, but making good progress on that project and it's coming along really well. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay. Would anyone like, with
I
no
make a
further business-
motion, we
You're gonna
conclude
adjourn?
the meeting, yes.
Okay, Jim, second? Okay.
I'll second that.
Jim moves, Rod seconds that we adjourn until our next scheduled meeting on July 17th. Vote.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, this meeting is adjourned at 6:03.
Can you give us a tour of the, just as well, I used to.
Thank you.
Try Well, I went in the first time. Yeah, I like that.